All right, good evening, fellas. What's up? Welcome to Monday here at Mike Your Mentor. So, Mondays are going to be My Life Mondays. And the basic premise for Monday is I'm going to talk about my week, my routine, some of the books that I'm reading that make a difference in my life. Maybe share some of the conversations that I've been having with people that really stuck out to me. Um, yeah, along those subjects. So it'll be more about maybe what I'm doing, and maybe that will hopefully inspire you to add something to your life, some of the books maybe, or some of the other things that I'm doing, in efforts to be a better man. So if this is the first video you're seeing, welcome to Mike Your Mentor. And basically this is me pretty much going live almost every day of 2019 with a different theme for the day. And really, I'm doing this because I've been through a lot in my life. And if you watch the Sunday sermons, you'll see how that progresses on what types of things I've been through. But my goal here is to take the wisdom and the experience that I've gained in my short 38 years here on the planet and just kind of pay it forward and pay it back to the next generation or to anyone that's interested. Because the thing that made, what up, James? My That made a huge difference in my life and why I was able to go from the environment that I was born into to having my own family, graduating from college, having a job, having my own business, all that type of stuff. The biggest thing that made a difference in my life was the mentors that I had, or one of the biggest differences, I should say. So I just want to do the same thing. And the best way to learn is to learn by watching other people and what they do and what they don't do. So here's kind of what I'll talk about today specifically. I'm going to share a little bit about my weekly routine. Then I'm going to share a couple of the books that I'm going through right now. And then I want to talk about two conversations that I had, one with an older gentleman and one with a younger gentleman that I think you'll find interesting. So, weekly routine. I think my life is pretty boring. I tend to be kind of a minimalist. I like to keep things simple. So, for example, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I work out. Every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday with an asterisk. So, like for example, if I got something going on one of those days and I can't, well, then I'll just make it up like on a Saturday. But I try to get at least 3 workouts in a week, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays I don't do anything as far as working out. Tuesdays particularly because that's family movie night for us. I never had any traditions growing up in my family, and so me and my wife wanted to figure out what would be a good tradition for our family. So where we're at, the local movie theater has what's called Taco Tuesday, and all the movies, for the most part, are $6. So that's where you'll find us. As a family, just enjoying a movie, pretty much every Tuesday. Thursdays, just like every other day of the week. So Monday, Wednesday, or Monday through Friday, I'm working. I start my day off around 6:30. I get up and I'm going to come downstairs. And the first thing that I believe is important is feeding my spirit. So I'm going to spend about an hour doing some devotions. I got a particular devotion that I go through that I'll share with you guys here in a little bit, that I do. And I try to do that 5 to 6 times a week. Some Saturdays I'm not, because every other Saturday I'm part of a men's group that meets. But yeah, definitely Monday through Friday I'm doing that. And then after that I gotta help get my daughter ready for school. And then after that it's work till about 4 or 5 o'clock. Then I'm gonna hit the gym on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then come home, make some dinner for the fam because I like to cook. And then I'm going to maybe hang out a little bit. And then I got to do some work for my business. And then Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, the majority of that looks like hanging out with the fam, and then doing work on business as well. Saturdays, I don't do too much on Saturdays. We try to do something Saturday nights as a family, or me and my wife have a date night. But during the day, I might play a little basketball in the morning, and if if I do and if I don't, after that, I'm generally working on stuff for my business. And then Sunday, get up, go to church. After church, I'm going to play a little bit more basketball. And then after that, I'm going to relax and do some work on my business, fill orders for clients, and work on stuff like that as well. So that's pretty much my week. I don't think that that's exciting, but I definitely like to keep it simple. I like to have structure. I need that. I'm kind of a chameleon. I can go with the flow, and if things change, that doesn't bother me. That doesn't get me all wound up or crazy. But if I have a preference, I do like the structure of knowing what's coming next. So I'll plan my days out, what I got to do for work, what I got to get done for that day, pretty much each and every day, the night before I go to bed. So tonight I'll plan out tomorrow what I got to get done for work, other little things that I'm working on, maybe stuff around the house, etc. So yeah, let's talk about these books. So my life focuses around 4 areas: my beliefs, my body, my brains, and then my business. So the most important one to me is my beliefs. So one of the books that I'm working my way through that I enjoy right now is this big old thing. It's called Haley's Bible Handbook. And before I tell you what the book is, there's a cool story behind this. So the guy who wrote this book really wanted to get to know his Bible. So he, not verse for verse, I believe, memorized the entire Bible. And he would do it religiously, like every day, to where he got so good at knowing all the verse, or the majority of the verses in the Bible. In his later part of life, he would just go around, and churches would bring him in, and he would go through the Bible story by story from beginning to end, and throw in whatever relevant verses that he thought were pertinent to the story. Which is pretty cool. But the reason I like this book, because he wrote it, is because it gives a lot of context to the stories and stuff that go on in the Bible. And to be honest with you, growing up, I thought the Bible was boring. But that's because I was pretty ignorant. And while I had read the Bible, I didn't really take time to learn the Bible and learn the backgrounds and the context about a lot of things that make a lot of these stories come to life. And quite honestly, or being honest with you, now that I'm older, is fascinating, a lot of this stuff that's in here. I'm a big prophecy guy, so that fascinates me. So yeah, so Haley's Bible Handbook, always got this around with me when I got a spare couple of minutes, read that. Another book that I'm going through right now is The Power of Forgiveness by Michael Cooley Sr., which is really cool. It's about his personal story of being robbed at gunpoint when he was a teenager working at a store, and his process of dealing with the PTSD that came from that, and actually getting to a point where he could forgive the people, the robbers that put him through that, and just his working through mentally why he would want to do that, why that would be even, why all these years later that would even be important. So I think that's it's been an awesome book so far. I'm about halfway through that, so highly recommend it. And then the next book that I've been working on is right here, No BS Business Success, by the man Dan Kennedy himself, who's a business consultant for hundreds of businesses. I mean, he's been around forever. But yeah, that book is really good. It's helped me a lot with growing my business. And so the way that I do this is I like to be a lifelong learner. I like reading. I probably don't make enough time for it, but I try to set a timer every day for 10 minutes and then just pick the book up and start reading. And then when the timer ends, where I stop is where I stop. And the next day, I'll pick it up there again. So some days I'll read the same book in a row. Some days I'll rotate through. But every day I'm trying to get at least 10 minutes of reading time in, because to me that's important in one of those areas. So I'll share a couple of those things in case you're interested. So Haley's Bible Handbook, The Power of Forgiveness by Michael Cooley Sr., No BS Business Success by Dan Kennedy. And then, so I was talking about my devotions in the morning, right? One of the things that's really got me a lot more interested in God's word and what it says, is just wanting to know the truth. Like, are these things real? Like, how can you know that they're real? Those type of deep questions. I love asking deep questions and having deep thoughts about all kinds of crazy stuff. You you couldn't imagine, from UFOs to conspiracy theories to, I mean, anything. I just love learning about new things and going deep. I don't really like the surface type of stuff. I like to know what people think, like how they feel, like why they feel like that. Probably to a point where sometimes it's can be a little maybe intimidating or a little bit intrusive. But I just like to get to know things, for what they are. So one of the things that's brought me to that point in my life is one of my mentors, Chuck Missler, who's a really cool guy. In his private life, or I'm sorry, yeah, in his public life. So he went to West Point, and then he worked at Ford as a senior exec for a while, and then he founded and was the chairman of, I think, 4 different defense or military defense companies. So his background in the military is cryptology. So while he's doing that in his private or his public life, in his private life, since he was 16, he had been studying the Bible. So with his mind for cryptology and messages and secrets and stuff, he really wanted to look at the Bible and dissect it. And he's got just crazy, amazing insights, things that I've never heard of, that now that I'm learning can make complete sense. But yeah, so that's what I do in the morning. I don't go through this one, through the Bible in 24 hours, though I did twice, because that's awesome, and that's where you want to start if you're interested in checking out any of Chuck Missler's stuff. But for the last year, I went through the Old Testament book by book, verse by verse, and then now I'm just working my way through the New Testament with the same thing. And this guy is like a history, science, like, I mean, it's crazy the stuff this guy knows and how he uses it to make things in the Bible come alive. Come alive. So there's the books, the stuff that I'm doing in my life. So the last 2 things, the 2 conversations, right? So I think these are going to be very interesting. So I'm always curious, and like, not having a dad like made me really observant about what other men say and other men did. Because as I'll be sharing, in the Sunday sermons and through the course of the years, with my father, like, not being there for the majority of my life, and then when he was, just being in and out, like, when he said something to me, like, as I got older, it didn't mean anything to me. Like, I wanted to see if he would actually do what he said. And that was the approach that I took with, and that I still take with everyone, to be quite honest. Are you going to do what you say? That's number one to me. It means more than anything. So I am always observing and always watching silently from the background to see if people are going to follow through. So the first conversation that I want to share with you was a conversation that I had with my son. So we go to the Taco Tuesday movie nights. So we buy at our movie theater the popcorn bucket, which is like $50, and then you can get unlimited refills every time you go to the movies. Well worth it if you see a lot of movies like we do. So our son wanted to go to a movie with his friends, so he takes the bucket. He goes to the movies, and then the movie's over, and they forget the bucket. He goes back to find the bucket, and the bucket's gone. So he comes home, and he doesn't say anything. So a couple days go by. My wife wants to go to the mall to hang out with our daughter, and they're going to bring the bucket, get some popcorn. They got like this treehouse thing there that my daughter likes to play at. So they're going to play there and just hang out, have, some mommy-daughter time. Well, my wife spends like 30 minutes looking for this bucket, and she can't find it. So then she asks our son, like, where's the bucket? And then that's when the truth comes out. He lost the bucket, or somebody stole it. He's not sure. So my wife is pretty mad, calls me up to tell me this, and share this with me because she needs to vent about how frustrated she is. Our son's 17, so we feel like he should be more responsible than that. So all right, so now we got the scenario playing out, and I got to come home and I got to have this conversation with him. So I'm thinking, like what do I say to my son, right? Like, because he's at the age where I was when my grandpa tried to talk to me. All I heard was lecture, lecture, lecture. And sometimes I did really listen, but in the moment I didn't want to hear what he was having to say. So I don't want to be like that with my son. So I'm always trying to be intentional in the words that I'm saying to him and how I'm speaking to him. So when we get home, I say, hey, dude, what's going on with the missing bucket that your mom called me about? 'Cause she seems pretty upset. And he says, yeah, we went to the movies, and then literally we were done in like 20 seconds. We walked down the stairs, and I turned around and realized it was gone, and I turned around and went back up there, and we couldn't find it. So I don't know what happened to it, but I'm going to pay Mom back, so don't worry about it. I'm like, all right, well, cool. I go, you realize why your mom's so upset, right? And he's like, yeah, because I lost the bucket. And it was $50, and I'm like, no, that's not the point. Like the money's, I mean, it's money, right? Like, it's a physical thing. It can be replaced. Like, it's a big deal, but that's not the big deal. The big deal is the responsibility part, right? Like, you lost the bucket, and then you didn't say anything until your mom asked you about it, 2 or 3 days later. So, like, let me put this in your world. Like, what if you lent a couple of your video games to your friends, or one of your friends, for a couple days, and their little brother like broke it, and instead of them saying something to you right away and apologizing and say that they'll make it right, they don't say anything at all. And then a week goes by, and you're like, hey, what happened to those video games I let you borrow? Can I get those back? And then they say, oh yeah, my brother broke it, I'm sorry. Like, you're gonna be pretty pissed off, right? And he's like, yeah, I would. And I'm like, right. So that's the point, right? Like, owning up to the responsibility. And I'm like, I'm not trying to lecture you. I'm like, I want you to understand this, because this is a lifelong lesson. When you make a mistake, the longer it takes you from the time you make the mistake to owning it and being willing to make it right, the worse it gets. And he knows a little bit about my history and some of the mistakes that I made. So I told him, I'm like, it's like the mistake that I made at this one point, and if you follow this channel long enough, you'll come to discover what that is. Now is not the time for that story. But I was like, you remember that, right? And I was like, that's exactly what I did, and look what it did to me, and look what it caused in my life, because I didn't address it right away and make it right away. And he's like, yeah, that's a good point. He's like, I understand that, right? And then so he proceeds to go upstairs. So that's story number one. And those type of things in my house are a weekly occurrence. Like, I really want to instill good leadership, good character traits in my son, like I think any dad would. But it's being willing to reject passivity, right? Because those conversations sometimes aren't fun, and be willing to talk to him about that and address the situation, as uncomfortable as it is. And we've had to have some uncomfortable conversations where I'm like, man, I do not want to talk to this dude about this right now. But that's a part of being a man, is accepting responsibility and rejecting passivity. So going and doing what you have to do. Alright, so the second conversation was with an older gentleman. And the reason why I think this conversation is important is because it goes and it shows the mindset of, I think, almost every man. I think I can make that generalization, and you'll see why. So this older guy, friends with him on Facebook, saw that he got engaged over the New Year's or the Christmas break and all that. Excuse me. So, we were playing some basketball. And when it's done, I'm talking to him, and I'm like, hey, man, saw you got engaged. Congrats. Like, when's the wedding? What are you thinking? And we're talking about that. And then, me, it's time to go a little deeper than that. So I asked him, I'm like, so, is this your first marriage or second? He's like, yeah, it's my second. And he's a cool guy. So right away he comes out and he's like, yeah, I made a lot of mistakes my first time around, and I'm not going to throw my ex under the bus. There's a lot of things I needed to take responsibility and learn and get better. He's like, yeah, so I'm like, all right, well, that's cool, man. Like, how are you feeling about this time around? He's like, well, to be honest with you, he's like, I'm excited, but I'm nervous too, right? Because of the way the first one went. Like, no one wants to find themselves in that position. And I'm like, yeah, I can definitely understand that. And so I asked him, I said, well, I go, why? Because he said to me, he said, yeah, growing up, like, my dad taught me a lot of bad things. A lot of bad things that now that I'm older and I can look back on, I should have never been taught. So then I'm like, there it is. Like, why? So I asked him, why do you think your dad taught you those things? And he was like, yeah, man. He's like, because that was what my dad knew. And even to this day, because his dad is like 80 and still alive, he's like, my dad still holds very strongly to those things that he taught me, whether we think they're right or they're wrong. And it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. And man, like, that is so true. Like, that's why I can say that for every guy, like, you don't know what you don't know. And at that point in his life, he thought that's what men were supposed to do. Run around, chase women, have 2 or 3, have a main one, have a side one, have, ABC 1, 2, 3. Because he didn't know any better. No one ever really, no one close in his life, like his father, right, or in a role like that, ever told him any different. So if that's all you've ever experienced, you don't know that there's something else. You don't know that there's something better. You don't know that there's a higher calling on your life. And that's why this channel and what we're doing is important. And that just gets me so fired up, right? Because growing up, there was things like I didn't know. And a couple of those things, man, I had to learn the hard way and pay a serious price for that. And if I can share those experiences and keep someone else from having to go through that stuff, as we'll find out, I do it every time. Because you don't know what you don't know. But I can promise you this. If you're like this older gentleman and like myself, if you seek after truth, you'll find it. And you'll be able to discern with your own mind whether it's right or not. But if you only know one way and you have no context or nothing to compare that against, then you're lost, man. You're just blind. So that's not a moral statement. That's like life wisdom. It's like fact. So that conversation was really intriguing that I had this week, and I'm finding that I'm having more and more conversations like that. And I don't know if it's that I'm just paying more attention and more in tune, which I think is part of it, or if God is just bringing these people into my life, right? Like, one of the big themes last year in my life was, and I'll share this last piece and then we'll be done for tonight because tonight's video is running a little bit long, but last year a big theme in my life was vulnerability, right? Like, getting vulnerable with people, like in a one-on-one setting, in a group setting, and stop lying. Stop lying to myself, stop lying to other people. Not that I'm a liar, just about how I feel about things and what I think about things, and playing it safe, like, and stop lying about the stuff that I've been through in the past and that I got it all figured out, like most guys want to act like they got it all figured out, putting this mask on, right? Like on Facebook, like, it's not real, man. Like, so the lesson that I learned, or the repeating lesson that kept showing up was, in vulnerability, was, if you get a group of guys together and they're talking and it's all the surface stuff, right? Like, I did this last week, I played ball, I went bowling, like, I drank beer with my buddies, whatever. If you get one guy to go deeper and be a little vulnerable and be like, man, I'm really, like, struggling in my marriage, or I had this happen, or this person in my life died and I don't know what to do, whatever that vulnerability looks like, it just takes one. And he's the battering ram, man, and he blows the doors down. And if it's a safe space, the vulnerability just comes out from every single guy. And the cool thing about that is, like, that's the power of being vulnerable, right? In that type of environment, is when you share those type of things, they have no more control over you. None. There can be no more shame. There can be no more embarrassment, because you brought it to the light, because you shared it. You got it off your chest. And man, my work with guys over the past year, even in my own my own experience with my own stuff, getting that stuff out is like 100 weights off your back. You're like floating on a cloud, not having to live with that stuff being like kept in secret, whatever it may be. So to end this video, I just want to encourage you, if there's something that's bothering you, be vulnerable, but use wisdom, right? Like, I hope that you have somebody in your life that you're close enough to, that you trust, that you can share this with, and that they will steward that appropriately, which means they will listen to you, they will give you good advice. They won't tell you what you want to hear. They'll be real with you, and they'll tell you what you need to hear. If you don't have somebody like that in your life, then you should make it one of your biggest priorities to find somebody like that who can share in your life like that, right? Like a mentor, like a bigger brother type figure. Because, man, that's why guys are killing themselves. That's why people are committing suicide. That's why we have all these problems. Or one of the reasons we have all these problems is because guys are walking around with all this stuff on the inside, because that's how we're taught. Keep it inside. Be strong. Keep it inside. No, it's BS. The strong part is sharing it. See, that's where the lies come in, is that to be strong you have to carry it on the inside. Nope. That's being weak. To be strong, you share and you let it out. And then there's no control, there's no shame, the devil can't play those games with you. So thanks for watching this longer video tonight. Tomorrow, Tuesday, I already forgot what Tuesday's theme is. Tuesday Thoughts. So yeah, so I'll get that video made and see you guys tomorrow and post it. But if you appreciate this, man, give me a like or a heart or something. Share this video. I enjoy spending this time with you guys and sharing, like the old man of wisdom, I guess, that I am. You know, and hopefully these will go smoother as I progress and get better with talking to you guys. So I hope you have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.